Hello, I'm Will and this is Mike with the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And in this video we'll be looking at issue 17 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol magazine, which came with the first parts for another unit of 10 Tyranid Termagants and a Ripper Swarm. The rest will come in the next issue, but in this video's battle report we'll be learning the rules for Command Points and Stratagems. Looking inside, first we have the build guide for the Termagants. This is exactly the same as the previous unit. The models are identical, so I'm not going to go over this in any detail. Although I do obviously remember the Ripper Swarm as well. Then we have background on life in the Imperium. It's pretty grim for the average citizen of the Imperium. Their lot is usually to toil in factories or farms or somewhere else that produces something necessary for the Imperium's survival for long hours with poor pay and no real leisure time, often working in dark, noisy, crowded conditions, possibly with poisonous atmospheres, and generally with a fairly short lifespan. One thing that keeps the masses going is the imperial faith, which is rigorously drilled into them, believing the emperor to be a god, and that every citizen's contribution, however small, is vital to the survival of the imperium. He's worshipped in a variety of ways on this takes different forms on different worlds, where the faith may be adapted to the local populace, but any sedition is rigorously stamped out. And then following on naturally, we learn about death in the Imperium, which is of course common for these workers who will live and die in their millions with no one to remember them. But death is not always the end, because the dead can still be of use to the Emperor, for example as a servo skull, as you see there, which is a skull of one of the faithful, hollowed out and fitted with mechanical components to make it into a useful machine for the servants of the Emperor to employ. They might attach lamps or tools or scanners or whatever they need to it. But for criminals, dissenters, heretics, or anyone else who has been sentenced for crimes against the Emperor, it might instead be turned into a servitor, which is essentially a human but has been lobotomized and all independent thought removed and then fitted with whatever attachments are useful to whoever wants the servitor. Some might be technical servitors with tool arms or other mechanical augments. Might also be fitted with guns to protect an area or provide heavy firepower, almost commonly just being used as manual labour, for lifting and carrying and so forth. But the majority are not so lucky, and their corpses might just be rendered down into starch to feed the rest of the starving masses. Now we look at the first founding chapters of the Space Marines. These were the original Space Marine chapters, or legions as they were at the birth of the Imperium, from which all of the other chapters in the Imperium are descended, but the first founding chapters are obviously the most storied and decorated of the chapters. And here are all 9 of them. So we've got the mysterious and secretive Dark Angels, headstrong and independent White Scars, who are masters of high-speed warfare, the Space Wolves, who accept very little other authority and fight in their own way, and they have a particular warrior culture. It's worth noting here that that's not actually their chapter symbol, that's the Silver Templars that we saw before, so that's just a mistake. Then we have the Stoic Imperial Fists, which are immovable in defence and implacable in attack, the Noble Blood Angels, who hide a secretive curse, the Iron Hands, who replace as many parts of their body as possible with mechanical augmentation, believing the flesh to be weak. The Noble Ultramarines, we've learned about before. The Pragmatic Salamanders, great artisans who fight to protect the common people of the Imperium quite often. And finally, the Subtle and Taciturn Raven Guard, who are masters of stealth warfare. And we have a bit more about Tyranid hive fleets and their particular adaptations that give them their character. So Leviathan, as we've seen before, and has a particularly strong synaptic network. Behemoth, the first of the hive fleets encountered, is extremely brutal and unsubtle, generally launching full frontal assaults, and its warriors are adapted to be most suited to that. We've got Hydra. I think that's the wrong picture again. I think it should be a different colour to that. They reproduce particularly quickly and can overwhelm an enemy with a very small amount of resources. Kronos seems to be adapted to fighting particularly bizarre enemies like demons and psykers. Typically employs a large amount of ranged bioweapons. Kraken seems to be the most cunning of the hive fleets and employs a lot of stealth organisms in multi-pronged attacks. And Jormungandr, which features a lot of burrowing organisms that will tend to emerge from below the enemy. And finally, a short story about a factory worker in a munitions factory making lasguns, one of the most common firearms in the Imperium, who considers himself lucky to be working in a reasonably good factory and having relatively good working conditions compared to some of the others he's seen. But it all gets turned a little bit upside down when Tyranids invade the planet. And then over the page, the story concludes with the arrival of a Space Marine, and you can read it to see exactly what happens if you want. But that will be it for the contents of the issue, so I'll hand you over to Mike, who will be teaching us about command points and stratagems, and taking us into our game.
So for our new rules in this issue, we're learning about command points and stratagems. So command points are a resource, so each command phase both players will generate a single command point, and these are spent on stratagems, which represent various tactical ploys or special manoeuvres that their army is capable of. It's better to use them early and often rather than hoarding them and never using them, because if you have any command points left at the end of the game, they're effectively wasted. And we're only learning one stratagem so far, the command reroll. So you can see there, that is the format for every stratagem. It tells you when it can be used and the effect when it is used. So for the command reroll stratagem, when you make certain types of roll, specifically a hit roll, a wound roll, a damage roll, a saving throw, an advanced roll, a charge roll, a desperate escape attempt, a hazardous test, or if you have rolled the dice to determine the amount of attacks made by a weapon, you may re-roll the dice, but you have to accept that result. It can be used in your opponent's turn, not just your own, and you can see it costs 1 command point. And we will learn later on that there are a number of stratagems that are available to every faction, but there are also faction specific ones as well, and there are some cut out command point tokens down there, although we will keep track of it our own way. And on the next page you can see some examples of when you might want to use your command reroll. So in the top example, the captain has failed an armor save and would be killed, but the Space Marine player is using the command reroll to reroll their save roll and is turned it into a success, so the captain will survive a little bit longer. And the second example, the Tyranid player is rerolling a charge, so rerolling it gives you an extra chance to succeed, although it doesn't say here, when you reroll a charge roll you do have to reroll both dice, you don't just reroll one, and you can't keep one dice and reroll the other. It's not entirely clear in this example, but that is the case. And we'll be using our new stratagem in today's scenario, Bring It Down. So for the Space Marines we have the Captain in Terminator armour, the Librarian, the Infernus Marines and all the Terminators. Whereas for the Tyranids we have the Psychophage, the Tyranid Prime, the 10 Termagants, the Von Ryan's Leapers and the bodyguards. We get victory points in this game. You get 5 for controlling one objective, 5 for controlling 2 or more, and 5 for controlling more than your opponent. And here we have the board layout, so you have 3-inch deployment zone on the left for the Space Marines and 3-inch deployment zone on the right for the Tyranids, except for the Librarian and the Psychophage, which start in the middle of the board. You can see there are 4 objectives. Objectives 1 and 4 are along the horizontal centre line in either deployment zone, and objectives 2 and 3 are along the vertical centre line nearer the long edges. And we have all of the terrain as well, with the Tyranid bits on the outer edges and the covery areas forming a rectangle in the middle. Well, like in previous games, it just gives you an example, so it doesn't say who's going first. We would roll off. In this case, the Tyranids have gone first, and it's just going over, remembering all the abilities you have available to you and so forth. And the same for the Space Marines. And it mentions in that little box on the bottom right that the game will last for 4 battle rounds. And here we have the victory outcomes, so you can pause and have a read through if you want to. And on the back cover you can see a preview of the upcoming combat patrols. You can see the Eldari on the left and the Chaos Space Marines on the right, which will be the next set of 20 issues, along with a new battle mat. But then with all that, we'll get into the game. So here we are set up. You might just about to be able to make out Objective 1 on the left there, and amongst all the Space Marines, 2 and 3 along the vertical centre, and then 4 over by the Tyranids. Psychophage and Librarian have to be deployed in the middle. The Space Marines won the deployment roll-off, so we'll go over them first.
So everything's on the board. Deep Strike isn't going to help me very much because the Tyranids can just block off the board by moving forward. So the Infernus Marines are on the left, the Captain in the middle and the Terminators on the right. Captain is by himself, he's not joining the Terminator squad because I'm probably going to need as many units as possible to hold the board.
And then for the Tyranids, you can see up over on the left, the Von Ryan's Leapers have infiltrated, and they can just about be over 9 inches away from the Librarian and hide behind that train to get near Objective 2. Termagants have to be in my deployment zone. Bodyguard's going to be there to hold Objective 4, and then the Tyranid Prime will be on my left flank, nearest the camera, to go and contest Objective 3. So now we're rolling off for the first turn.
Well, I won the roll-off, and I have to go first because of that.
So we're on to Space Marines, turn 1. At the start of the command phase we both generate a command point. These are just for our reference, it'll be on the overlay as well. I'll be blue for this series and Will be red.
And then at the end of my command phase I held Objective 1, so I got 5 victory points for that. Librarian has fallen back from the Psychophage because they don't really fancy being eaten by the devastating wounds anti-Psyker 4+. Falling back to hold Objective 3 though, and everybody else has moved up forwards. The Infernus Marines getting up to the barricade, the Terminators are a little bit further back, and one of them is still on Objective 1, and the Captain is moving straight down the middle. So then we're on to the shooting phase. I'm going to start with the Infernus Marines because the only thing they're in range of is the Psychophage. So they get 5d6 automatic hits. 15 automatic hits, wounding on 5s because strength 5 versus toughness 9. 8, yeah.
8 3+ saves from the Psychophage. It failed 2, but it's got a 5+, feel no pain. So it doesn't ignore any, so it takes 2, it's down to 8 wounds.
We'll do everything from the Terminators into the Psychophage as well. Got 6 shots with the Assault Cannon, hitting on 3s. 5 hits, wounding on 5s, but 6s do devastating wounds. Oh, 2 devastating wounds, but nothing else, so that'll just be 2 wounds going through.
Yeah, I'll just roll the Feel No Pain for these now. Don't ignore either, it's down to 6.
And then 4 Stormbolters all within 12 inches, so they get 4 shots each. 3s. That was 9 hits, these will be winning on 6s because strength 4. Nothing. And the Captain will also shoot it, see if he can chip off another wound. He hits 3 times with 4 shots, also winning on 6s. Oh, he got 1.
The 3+ save, it failed, and it does ignore it, so it does take another wound.
And then in the charge phase, the Captain will declare a charge on the Psychophage. So we need a decent-ish number, but he can re-roll. A 9 should be enough on the first go, though. So the Captain will go and stand there, and then he will get to attack. He'll have 6 attacks hitting on 2s, 5 hits wounding on 5s. 2, that's -2 AP.
So these will be 5+ saves. Fail both. You know, I'm going to use my command point to re-roll one of those, just so try and stop it taking in too much damage. Oh, I did save. So 2 go through, 5+ Feel No Pain. Don't shrug either, so it's down to 3 wounds. Then the Psychophage has D6 + 1 attacks for 3, hitting on 3s, hitting 2, wounding on 3s, but 6s are devastating wounds. Nope, it doesn't get anything.
But that will be the end of my turn.
So we'll be on to Tyranids turn 1. So once again we both generate a command point, so I'm on 1 and the Space Marines are on 2. My movement, the Tyranid Prime has come into the middle because you're not allowed to stand on this whole thing, so he has to go a bit of the long way round. Luckily he can just fly over the barricade. The Barbed Gaunts aren't going to move. Psychophage is going to stay in combat. The Von Ryan's Leapers advance. They get some basically to gum up that traffic way. They might get squished by the Terminators, but that will pull them away from Objective 1, and the Termagants have just moved up normally. But in the shooting phase, I'll do the Barbed Gaunts first. They're going to shoot at the Infernus Marines. Actually, I'll do the Termagants first, just in case if the Barbed Gaunts do really well, they might be able to pull some of the Termagants out of range, so I might as well try and get all my shooting. So 10 shots on 4. 7 hits, wounding on 3s. 7 wounds. No AP though.
3+ saves. Failed 2. We lose an Infernus Marine.
And then the Barbed Gaunts will shoot at the Infernus Marines as well for 5d6 shots. Well, actually, don't get blast now, so maybe I should have done it first. The 21 shots hitting on 3s because they have heavy and they didn't move. 1 missed the box. 13 hits, wounding on 3s. 8 wounds.
8 more 3+ saves. Failed 2 more. I think at this point I will spend a command point, so go down to 1 command point to re-roll one of those because it will save me an Infernus Marine if I succeed. On a 3+, I did, so I only take 1 wound from that.
And then in the charge phase, my only charge is going to be the Tyranid Prime, and he's going to try and charge at the Librarian. And he gets an 8, that's definitely enough. And he's just going to fly over to contest Objective 3 as well. And then the Tyranid Prime will be going first because he charged. So 6 attacks on 2s. 4 hits, and wounding on 3s, getting 1.
With a 3+ save for the Librarian, which he made. That's everyone who's charged, so it's my pick, and I'll do the Captain, because the Psychophage hasn't fought, so 6 attacks on 2s. Only 4 hits from him. I think I'll spend my other command point to re-roll a hit this time, so one of those 2 1s. We re-roll into a 3, so that's 5 hits. 5s to wound though. 2 again.
2 5+ saves. I failed 1, so I will re-roll 1 to try and keep it alive. I succeeded, so 2 damage going through, and it shrugged 1, so it's got 2 wounds left. Psychophage hitting back with 5 attacks on 3s, and 4, and 3s, getting 1 normal and 1 devastating, so 2 damage will be going through, and then there's 1 save at -1.
So that's a 3+ for the Terminator Captain. He made that, so he just takes 2 wounds from the devastating wounds. And that just leaves the Librarian to go. He has 4 attacks that hit on 3s. Gets 3, and wounds on 3s as well. 2 at -1.
5+ saves, fail both.
D3 damage apiece. That is 3 in total.
Tyranid Prime is down to 3. And that's it actually for the end of Battle Round 1, as we head into Space Marines turn 2. So in the command phase, we both gain a command point, both back up to 1, and at the end of the command phase the Marines will score 5 victory points because they still only hold 1 objective.
I'm not going to fall back either of my two characters because they're doing okay, and we're just going to move up the other two units. We are abandoning Objective 1, but one of Infernus Marine is now on Objective 3, and the Terminators hopefully be able to take Objective 2 from the Leapers in the charge phase. But we'll have the shooting first, where we'll have the Infernus Marines. They're all in range of the Leapers, so we'll put them into them. We have 4d6 automatic hits. Ooh, 22 hits, wounding on 4. That was 11 wounds.
11 4+ armor saves. Failed 3, so we lose a leaper.
And then the Terminators are going to shoot everything at the Termagants. So assault cannon on 3s, 4 hits, wounding on 3s, 6s are devastating wounds. We've got 2 normal wounds and a mortal wound.
So 2 5+ armor saves, fail both, so that's 3 dead Termagants.
And 12 shots from Storm Bolters because 2 are more than 12 inches away. There's 9 hits wounding on 3s, 5.
5+ armor. Ooh, made 1. So it's only 7 dead Termagants.
That brings us to the charge phase. I'll have 1 charge, which will be the Terminators charging the Von Rein's Leapers. And they're in with a 7. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a traffic jam, so only 2 can get into fight because there's too much terrain in the way. The Leapers will get to go first, though, because fight's first.
12 attacks from the Leapers on 3s. 9 hits, wounding on 4s. 5 wounds at AP -1.
5 3+ saves. Oh, we fail 3. We will lose a whole Terminator. I won't re-roll that because I think the characters might need it more. We lost the Sergeant, and we've got 2 Terminators that can attack with Power Fists, hitting on 3s. They get 5, wounding on 3s as well. They get 5 at AP -2.
So these are 6s. Yeah, I'll do these 2 at a time because the Leapers have 3 wounds each. First one, saves. 3 left. And then he dies, and then the last Leaper fails. So we've got 1 Leaper left on 1 wound. Then it's my pick. I'm going to pick the Psychophage to go. D6 +1 attacks on the Captain for 4. Hitting on 3s, hitting 3, and wounding on 3s. That is 2 going through and 2 wounds at AP -1.
So 2 3+ saves. I made those, so 2 more mortal wounds. Captain's down to 2. Then the Librarian will go, because the Tyranid Prime hasn't fought yet. He hit only twice. I'll save a reroll though in case he needs it for his armour save. And he wounds twice.
2 5+ armour, made both with a double 6. So the Tyranid Prime's attacks on the Librarian, 6 attacks on 2s. Fucking 3. Wounding on 3s. 3 wounds at -1.
3s. Librarian fails 1. I'll take that though, he's down to 3 wounds. Just the Captain to go on 2s. It's 5 hits. 5 to wound. 4. Okay.
5+ armour. Made 2. So we'll command point one of those as well. Nope. So 4 damage going through. Got to make a lot of... Oh, it shrugged to at least 3. It shrugs 3. It's down to 1. So that is it. At the end of Space Marine's turn 2. On to Tyranids turn 2. So again, gaining a CP, going up to 1 and 2 respectively. I get another 5 victory points because I only hold 1. And I have a lot of battle shock to make, so I'll do the Psychophage. It's fine. The Von Rein's Leaper. Nope. And the Termagants are fine. So my movement phase, the Tyranid Prime is going to fall back from the Librarian. It's going to fly over towards Objective 1. The Von Rein's Leaper is going to stay in combat with the Terminators. I don't think it can actually fit out. And the Termagants advance, they're moving down just to get in the way of anything trying to get towards the Barb Gaunts. In the shooting phase, the Barb Gaunts will shoot at the Infernus Marines. 5d6 shots, so it's only going to be 11 shots. Hitting on 3s, 7 hits, wounding on 3s, 6 wounds.
6 3+ saves. Failed 3. I will spend a command point to re-roll 1, because it might keep an Infernus Marine alive, because I'll be losing 2 with this. Yes, so we take 2 wounds.
Let's do the 3 Termagants on the Infernus Marines as well. 4s. Oh, they will miss. So into the fight phase where the remaining Leaper gets to fight first. 6 attacks on 3s. Getting 2. And wounding on 3s. Getting 1.
With a 3+ save. Oh, we do take a wound though. Then I get to pick. I'll do the Captain because he could easily die. 6 attacks on 2s. Only 4 hits, but I want to save the reroll in case he needs to make an armor save. He didn't wound in the box, still didn't wound. No, again, I won't re-roll. Not a good enough chance, and I want to save the re-roll for the armor save.
So I've only got the Psychophage left. D6 +1 attacks, all for 7. Hitting on 3s. Only getting 4. Wounding on 3s. There's 2, no 6s.
3+. Failed, that's what I'm saving the command point for. We need a 3+ for the Captain to live. He's okay. Lastly, the Terminators, 6 attacks on 3s. 5. 3s again. Only 3, but, well, we'll leave these at 666.
No.
And then we're consolidating slightly, just getting a bit closer to the Psychophage, who are not engaging it in melee at this point.
And that's going to be it for Tyranids turn 2. On to Space Marines turn 3.
Captain needs to make a battle shock test, though. He fails with a 4.
We both gained a command point, and the Marines gained 10 victory points because they held 2 objectives.
The Librarian is marching towards the Termagants. The Infernus Marines are following him. They're staying on Objective 3. The Captain will stay in melee with the Psychophage, and the Terminators have spread out a little bit. They're hopefully going to go and punch the Psychophage, get its last wound gone. The Infernus Marines, though, are going to shoot backwards into the Tyranid Prime. 3d6 automatic hits. 13. Wounding on 4s. 7 wounds.
7 4+ saves. Well, that's a good roll. Failed, you know what? I'll re-roll one of those. No, we rolled into a fail. So he's Tyranid Prime's down to 1 wound.
And the Librarian is going to shoot his Stormbolter into the Termagants in his face, but he will use Smite on the Barb Gaunts, just the normal version. Stormbolter on 3s, 3 hits. 3s to wound, 3.
5+ armour, a 2. 1 dead Termagant.
And Smite, d6 shots, 4. Hitting on 3s, 2. Wounding on 3s, still strength 5 with this version, 2. Minus 1 AP.
5+ armour, they both.
The Terminators are going to split fire. We're going to do the Assault Cannon and 1 Stormbolter into the Tyranid Prime, the other 2 Stormbolters into the 2 remaining Termagants. Assault Cannon, 3s, 2 hits, 3s to wound, 6 is a devastating. Oh, there's a devastating wound, so that will kill it with a mortal wound. 8 Stormbolter shot from the Termagants, 7 hits, and 5 wounds.
5+ armour, yeah, they're all dead.
Then in the charge phase, the Terminators are just going to go straight into the Psychophage like this. I'm not going to roll because they only needed 2, but 1 will stay a bit further back so that we remain within 3 inches of objective 2, because it can't fight anyway. And then the Librarian will try and charge the Barb Gaunts. And he gets us 8, which should be enough. Doing the charges, I'll do Terminators first. We've got 9 attacks with Power Fists, hitting on 3s, that's 7, and wounding the Psychophage on 5s. We get only 2, but these are at -2.
So 5+ armour, made 1. I'll re-roll that 1 into a success.
Then the Librarian. Librarian 4 attacks on 3s, getting 3 hits. 3s to wound the Barb Gaunts, getting 2 at -1.
5+ armour again, fail both.
D3 damage, so I've got to do them one at a time. The first one does 1, so the second one doesn't matter what it does, it'll just kill 1 Barb Gaunt.
And then the Psychophage is going to try and finish off the Captain. Gets 4 attacks on 3s, getting 2, and 3s, 1.
1 3+ save, made it. Captain get the killing blow though. He gets 4 hits. Don't actually need the reroll for an armor save anymore because he's safe, so I might as well try and get another one. Yes, and 5 to wound. 2.
Armour, fail both. Got to shrug them all. No, he finally goes down. Does it thrash about? No. And that will kill the Psychophage. And then it's just 4 attacks from the Barb Gaunts, who will miss. And yeah, with that I think we'll call it there. I've only got 1 unit left, so I'll only get 5 victory points, and they're just going to get steamrolled by all the remaining Marines, who will easily hold more than me. So that'll be a Space Marine victory, and we'll recap that game for you now. So that was the game for issue 17 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol magazine. How do you think that went?
Well, obviously pretty well, but I think it could have gone either way. Winning the first turn was a big thing because it meant the Librarian didn't immediately get eaten. There's a decent chance the Psychophage could have just killed him in 1 round of attacks, and then obviously he'd just be gone then.
Yeah, I do think if I'd gone first, then I would have had a pretty decent position on 3 of the objectives, and the Psychophage would have been in the middle. Although, with the way the terrain is, it's actually really hard for it to move around. There'd be no reason for you to go into the middle to fight it. Although I guess I'd probably send it after your home objective then. Also, just due to the way the terrain is, that it's actually quite hard to manoeuvre the leapers around because they can't go along the board edges, which really plays into a unit like the Terminators. Even though they get traffic jammed, they basically gum everything up.
Also, I think my shooting was quite effective. I struggled to kill things in melee, but your save rolls were very good at points.
Yeah, I couldn't roll 3+ hit rolls or wound rolls. I could roll 5+ armour saves though.
Yeah, and feel no pains as well. That Psychophage lasted a very long time, but fortunately it didn't kill the Captain either. Terminators are slightly more durable than the Captain, but I thought the Captain would probably last long enough. I still had to use a couple of command points to keep him alive though.
Yeah, I think it was a good showcase of how useful command points are at keeping key units alive, because the Psychophage and the Captain probably should have both died earlier
reroll.
Yes, especially when you have a statistically likely roll like a 3+ to make, then re-rolling it, you've got a decent chance of success and it can make all the difference. I also used one to keep an Infernus Marine alive, which is obviously just an extra flamethrower.
I know. Considering that you actually had the entire Space Marine Combat Patrol, every Marine counts. You're pretty limited on models and total number of units. You really need everyone to survive, so...
Yeah, it did okay because it was being aggressive and doing damage, but you can still see the links I had to go to mitigate the fact I don't have very many models.
Yeah, and also the fact you had to abandon your home objective.
And obviously with the Librarian potentially in peril in the middle, I had to be as quick as possible and inflict as much damage as possible. We are starting to see the limitations of a board this small when we've got nearly the full combat patrols for both forces. There's quite a lot of stuff on the board and with the terrain,
And I would actually argue it probably is slightly too much terrain for a board this size. And a command point reroll, stratagems are very useful, and command point reroll is a very common one. You probably expect to see it multiple times in all the games going forwards. You will have the combat essentials cards which do show the faction specific ones, but we'll obviously learn about them and the generic ones later on.
But command point reroll is one of the easiest to understand, so good for grasping the concept, and also, as you say, probably the most commonly used, simply because you're always going to want to reroll bad dice rolls. And it does help to mitigate the fact that this is a dice game, so you can make tactical use of this resource to mitigate bad luck, but obviously you then can't spend the command points to do other things, so it's always a decision as to whether or not to use command point reroll.
Yeah, and also actually another thing that it doesn't mention, which didn't apply in this game, is that technically you're not allowed to use stratagems on units that are battle shocked, so that's another reason why battle shock is important. But we did check and it didn't mention that in the magazine that introduced battle shock, so for the time being we will assume that you can use stratagems on battle shock units, and at this point it is mostly just to demonstrate how it's used. Yeah, and obviously we got the first half of more Termagants, and it's exactly the same kit as the previous 10. Termagants are a pretty decent mainstay Tyranid unit. Unless you want to go for an all big monsters army, you can't really go wrong with lots of Termagants. But anyway, I don't think there's anything much more to say about this game or this issue. So as always, if you like this content, do leave a like and subscribe. We were the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.